Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my page 112 tag video for June 2025. This is also my Buzzwordathon video for June 2025, where I play Books and Lala's particular game having to do with hyped up book covers for this year. I'm playing with a particular collection of books going month by month, and if you want to skip to that part of the video, the timestamp is right here. So anyway, the page 112 tag was brought to BookTube by Sean the Bookmaniac. It's based off of a French literary prize wherein the long list of said prize was created solely by reading page 112 of the books in contention. And all of these, I believe, were novels, and page 112 is usually past all of the polished pages for editors, somewhere in the middle of the book where you get to the raw, real writing. And without any of the context of the rest of the story, you can only judge, technically speaking, by the quality of the writing on that page. So I have been using this tag ever since the beginning of COVID to slowly whittle down my physical unread shelves while building them back up again. I use this handy dandy Books and Cats mug. Inside you see pieces of paper, and these pieces of paper are titles of books on my physical unread shelves that I acquired in 2024 or earlier. Now, for the past several months, I seem to be playing a psychological battle of wits with my mug, where I've been hoping and trying to get some 2024 acquisitions, but instead I've always been getting earlier stuff. You know, the plus side of that is that if I've played with the book before in this game, I have less post-production to do now, but it takes away from the exciting experience of trying something new that I've never seen before. So yeah, all things considered, I'd love to get a 2024 acquisition. Sooner or later, we'll have to run out of the older stuff, right? I guess we'll see. And did I say that I'd pick out 3 titles randomly from this mug and then choose one of them for my month's TBR? That is the plan here. So anyway, we are starting with book number 1. Let's see what we will do and if this trend of older books will continue. All right, what's sticking together and what's coming out? Oh, okay. Kind of holding on to something, but I got it loose. And this is Signal Fires by Danny Shapiro. Well, what do you know? Halfway into the year, and I've broken the cycle. This is a 2024 acquisition that I got, I believe, over the summer at my used library bookstore. This is a novel by an author. I read her memoir and didn't like it as much, but I kind of still want to give her a go and see what I think. Well, this is exciting, and now it's time for book number 2. Maybe I won't mind an older book as much this time. It's always nice to get a little bit of variety in some way or another, although a lot of these books are kind of the same. But anyway, let's see what this one is. The Poetry of Secrets by Cambria Gordon. I seem to be continuing. The mug this month is like, you said 2024 acquisitions, you got it. So here's another one. I do think I got it from the exact same place and time as the last book, but you know, that's how random goes. And finally, book number 3. Would it be too much to get it at least from one other place? You know, or am I being too nitpicky with this mug? But it'd be nice to see some sort of variety. So let's see where I got this one from and when and where and how and so forth. The Space Between Us by Thridi Umrigar. So, another 2024 acquisition, but from a different place. So thank you very much, mug. I got this from a local used bookstore, another local used bookstore, Mojo Mala Books and Records, I believe it is. So yeah, there we go. It's a little bit different here. You know, they're all 3 novels, but you know, now we get to the part where I get to read and see where they're different in story. And anyway, you've seen me pull out these three books from my shelves. I am going to go and read the books by myself first to, gather my own thoughts, and then I'll come back to you. So stay tuned. And I'm back. My presentation here and the lighting might look a little different because actually my battery was dying at the end of the last clip, so I went ahead and recharged everything, and now I'm ready to go. So we're starting with book number 1, Signal Fires by Dani Shapiro. And as you can see, page 112 here is a completely blank page before the beginning of a new chapter or part of the book. So I'm going to go ahead and read from page 110. Over the next months and years, these will continue and become a neighborhood tradition long after the name Misty Zimmerman has faded from collective memory. Someone will wind an elaborate set of twinkling lights around the oak's trunk and string them into the tree's lower branches by Christmas. Others will paint wildflowers and grasses in the spaces between the tree's massive roots. As the years go on, people will no longer be aware that a girl died here. They will know only that there is a bit of magic and unexpected beauty here in this unlikely spot. And then there's a break. Mimi lies still. She concentrates on the rise and fall of her breath. If she moves, Ben will know she's awake. If they open their mouths, they will say things that they will always remember and they can never be able to take back. Their silence is a third presence in the room. She can't stop thinking about Misty Zimmerman's mother. Mrs. Zimmerman, her first name is Ruth, is divorced and lives 3 blocks over, near the station, in a row of houses that have been converted into apartments. The ex-husband has moved out of state. Mimi knows this only because the woman works part-time at Avalon High as an assistant librarian. They've had no more than a nodding acquaintance at the morning coffee cart. A shiny dark bob, a mommy haircut, and bright red lips, even early in the morning. And now Ruth Zimmerman's only child is dead. Dead, Mimi digs her nails into her palm, because of her children. She knows Theo is in the kitchen wolfing down a sandwich. As surely as she were standing inches from him, she sees the streaks of tears on his cheeks. She hears Sarah rustling in her room next door. There have been advantages and disadvantages over the years to the cozy quarters of their home's second floor. She and Ben haven't had quite as much privacy as they'd wish. They've burst out laughing at the creak of their bed springs. But all things considered, she likes keeping her children close. Now she sends out a stream of silent words, a sort of prayer, to each of them. Okay, so I feel like this page benefits from, it's just a lucky page in what it covers. In the first part, we see that there's a traumatic event that took place near a tree. And it's the sort of thing, apparently, where, the community builds a ritual out of it, which is, it becomes so inured in the community itself that it outlives the memory of why they started the ritual of winding the lights around the tree at a certain time. So that this girl who died, it seems, Misty Zimmerman, it'll be forgotten, that part will be forgotten, but it's interesting to think that, the ritual will live on. Which is an interesting, I guess, it would be an interesting backstory thing, but, that's not, I think, what this story is about, or at least not at this, on this page. We're not, going way into the future and talking about the community. It seems like we're going right back to near Misty Zimmerman's death when it's obviously being remembered by Mimi, this character. And I'll go ahead and say it seems like Mimi and Ben, or the married couple, they're, sleeping, it seems like, in close proximity. And we can tell that there'd been some sort of argument because she's worried that, they would say things to each other that they couldn't unsay, which means that, there's or if not argument, there's tension in the relationship, and it's just a really bad time, which you get straight on the page a good reason for why it might be a bad time for these people, that the death of Misty Zimmerman has something to do with their children. And so then we get like a little bit of like an intro into 2 of the children, maybe the only 2 children, whatever. And one of them would probably be upset, Mimi thinks, and one of them is, we don't get that much about the other one. But anyway, all of this is on the page, all of this stuff that feels like it's probably very integral to the story or is a significant plot point, just because I would think when crafting a short story, if your children are involved in the death of somebody else, that's pretty significant, a significant source of conflict. I mean, she's also thinking about Misty's mother and, what a horrible, grievous loss that'll be. And she's thinking in terms of, I know her, not, close intimately, but, we know each other. And now I know she's bereft. And we get a little bit about how she doesn't even have a husband anymore, so maybe she's more alone than we thought. And so anyway, it's just, the emotional stakes of this page are very compelling. And even with, that break in tone, like, the first part is about, this ritual that's going to become a big deal in the community. And then we go to a hyper-specific character and her specific relationship to this death. So yeah, I gotta say, I am intrigued again by you, Danny Shapiro. Book number 2 is The Poetry of Secrets by Cambria Gordon, and it is slightly different from the last book in that it is historical fiction, and I also happen to know it takes place during the Inquisition. Within the context of this page, you might be able to zero in on a certain ethnic group, but that would probably only be if you're relatively familiar with Jewish ethnic groups. "How lucky for you," said Isabel dully. Since her sister said nothing about the torn fabric, Isabel could not take the suspense and forced the subject. "Where did you find that?" "On the iron grate out of our window." Isabel thought fast. "I crawled out to get Senor Cohen's fabric after all. I knew Papa wouldn't approve. Please don't tell." "Then where is our new dress material?" demanded Beatrice. "Still at the studio, if you can believe it. Yusei hasn't had the time to cut it. He was at synagoga, actually. Both he and his father. I told Senora Cohen that Papa wouldn't let us return to their house, so she said she'd ask Yusei to deliver it this week. She feels simply awful about what happened the other night." Beatrice's expression did not seem to care whether Hannah Cohen felt guilty or not. "And the color?" "Pardon?" "The dress fabric. What color did you choose?" "Oh, periwinkle. The one you preferred the night of Sukkot." "How did you get past the gates of the Juderia?" "Since it was such a short visit, I was able to slip out just before the hour." "But it's nearly midnight. What have you been doing all night then?" "Sitting in the center courtyard, writing by the moonlight. I didn't want to disturb Mamma and Papa, and I thought it best if I waited until they bedded down." Isabel removed her gloves. "Come now, Beatrice, are you quite through interrogating me?" Beatrice snorted. "I'm not sure." Isabel rustled around in a drawer. "Here, take my fan. You always like the jewels on the handle." Beatrice snatched it from Isabel, squinting up at her sister. "I think I believe you." So this is a scene, it seems, between two sisters, Isabel and Beatrice, and it is a confrontation because Isabel snuck out of the house to get some fabric, or there was torn fabric, or frankly, that part's a little confusing to me. And another part that kind of niggles at me is how this is set up. Like at the very beginning, Isabel is nervous about something. She has some torn fabric that she thinks Beatrice should notice, and so she presses the issue, and then she immediately gets defensive and says, well, this is why I snuck out after all. And it just made me wonder, instead of like prodding Beatrice to ask you something and then getting defensive about it, wouldn't it feel less suspicious if you just, I don't know, explained it in your own right, saying, well, I'm going to bring up this subject in case you're wondering about the torn fabric. I snuck out for this reason. It just feels like, it's, I don't know, it's less defensive, and that would be good if you're trying to, make an excuse for yourself. Owning it is a better choice. But then again, maybe this is just part of this character's character, that she, I don't know, the whole thing though, because, it's a tone shift too, like she was really dull and bored, and then she prodded a subject, and then she's like hyper defensive. So it's a weird tone shift. So that's my nitpick there. Otherwise, there's like some interesting factoids. I think you'd need some knowledge of the time and place. Like the Juderia would be like a ghetto. It would be like a area that Jews were confined to in a city, and that it would be closed and locked at night so that the Jews couldn't leave. And so that's the question of like, when did you leave? When did you come back? That sort of thing. Because, they wouldn't... If Isabella were out after a certain time, she wouldn't be able to get back into the Juderia, and that would also be a problem because she's not allowed to be out. Allowed by the Catholic authorities. Also, we get a little bit into her character. Maybe she's a little dreamy. She stays out to write in the courtyard, that sort of thing. So, and maybe like, that she's trying to sneak in after her parents go to bed. Talks again how she's a little contrary, that she's doing things maybe she's not supposed to be with the writing or the sneaking out for the fabric or what have you. And then there's some references to Jewish holidays like Sukkot. And then there's finally a bribe at the end, which I guess is Isabella's best attack plan if she wants Beatrice to stay quiet about this sneaking out information. So there's some interesting stuff. Definitely some stuff you'd have to have some cultural knowledge of for it to make sense. And I'm still a little bit nitpicky about like that tone shift where she prompts a situation where then she's defensive about it, where I feel like I mean, I guess it could be just true to the character, but it makes a lot more logical sense if, she just, instead of prompting something and getting defensive, then she just, brought it up herself and owned it. And finally, book number 3 is The Space Between Us by Thridi Umrigar. I'm not sure if this is contemporary or historical, but we're moving to a new location. This is Indian fiction. When she woke up a few hours later, the bruises on her arm had shrunk. If they had originally looked like the map of the world, now they were down to the size of the map of Brazil. Any other time she would have been surprised, but after the dreamy strangeness of the message from Bhima, anything seemed possible. She rose from the bed, slid her feet into her rubber slippers, and walked into the kitchen. Suddenly, she felt unaccountably shy in front of the woman who was leaning over the sink, scrubbing dishes with the same intensity with which she had rubbed her back a few hours ago. She wanted to thank Bhima for her kindness, wanted to explain to her how hot and wonderful life felt when it trickled back into one's veins, wanted to tell her about how cold her heart had felt after this last encounter with Firoz and how Bhima had warmed it again, as if she had held her cold gray heart between her brown hands and rubbed it until the blood came rushing back into it. But a net of shyness fell over Sarah as Bhima looked up from the dishes and at her. She had long accepted that Bhima was the only person who knew that Firoz's fists occasionally flew like the black vultures over the desert of her body, that Bhima knew more about the strangeness of her marriage than any friend or family member. But now Sarah felt as if Bhima had an eyeglass to her soul, that she had somehow penetrated her body deeper than Firoz ever had. Better? Bhima asked unsmilingly. In reply, Sarah raised her arm so that Bhima could see the receding marks on her skin. The older woman nodded briskly. By tomorrow morning there will be no signs at all. Sarah felt her face flush with what Bhima had not said. No signs of Firoz's brutality. That was what Bhima had wanted to say. Mortification made Sarah turn her head away, so she didn't notice that Bhima had abandoned the kitchen sink and taken a few steps toward her, drying her hands on her sari as she walked. Okay, so I think part of this is, for me, a taste issue, that this language is way too flowy and lyrical, purple maybe even, for my tastes, and that it's to me, it just detracts from, the emotional stakes on the page. So we have Sarah. We ultimately learn that she's being beaten by her husband. I mean, that's what these bruises are about. And we're in a place where she wakes up and the bruise has, shrunk in size. There's, the metaphors about maps and that sort of thing. But the main interaction she has on this page is with the older woman, Bhima. And Bhima is the one person, it seems like, who knows about the abuse and is tending to Sarah. But there's complications there as well. It seems like the complications would be that Sarah may feel guilty or ashamed about what's happening, and Sarah's very intimate knowledge of her, and Bhima's very intimate knowledge about her life that nobody else has. And then Bhima herself, there's a little bit, that she, she's a caretaker, but there's something, at least in when she's talking, that's, a little brusque. And, she's not maybe, the emotional, syrupy caretaker. She's just doing her business to help, I guess. And I just feel like that's really intriguing, but just the language, the flowery language, like describing beatings as hands flying over the desert of a body, I just feel like that detracts from the reality of it. And I assume this language works for some people and it's very pretty, but I just feel like, to me, what grabs me more within this setting is the idea of how Sarah is dealing with this reality that she's being abused, that nobody knows about it, that it's her husband, and there could be, cultural issues involved. And then she has this person in her life who actually is providing great help and even comfort maybe to her, but yet the fact that she knows the secret is also a bit of a sticking point. So that's interesting stuff, but I think we're getting more flowery language than we're getting character development. And so with that, I think I'm going to put this book down. So now my choice for this month's page 112 tag is between these two books, Signal Fires and The Poetry of Secrets. And I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with Signal Fires. I think there's a lot of, interesting stuff in The Poetry of Secrets, but, that niggle about, the character motivation and the weird tone shift at the very beginning of the page kind of, nicked at me, whereas everything on this page feels like it's flying on all cylinders, and maybe it's just luck of the draw, what was on that page that we got such a significant plot element, I think, about if Mimi is the main character of the page, the significant thing that happened where her children are responsible for this tragedy. And it just, gets immediately into questions about like how this will affect her family and her community. And so it's just the character work that I say I wanted. It seems it's right there. I can see the emotional stakes and I want to dig more into it. So that's what I'm putting on the TBR this month. And now for my Buzzwordathon pick. So Kayla from Books and Lala has done the Buzzwordathon readathon for several years now, where she takes some hyped up concepts and makes it into a monthly readathon where people can pick books. Usually I think it's about title prompts and what's popular in titles, but this year she also went for cover prompts, and that worked really well for me. And my Raid the Shelves big hullabaloo that I went on last September, where I got 18 books when I went to the Jewish Book Council's big, Raid the Shelves event, and I need a big excuse to actually be reading them consistently. And as you can see here, I have been reading consistently month by month following the Coverathon, Buzzwordathon prompts. So thank you very much to Kayla. And for June, the prompt is Celestial Images. And what I am going for is a short story collection. In Other Lifetimes, All I've Lost Comes Back to Me, by Courtney Sender. And as you can see, like at the very top of the page or the cover, there's a moon, and right over this house there's a lot of stars. So there we go, our celestial cover. And that about covers it for me now. I will leave Goodreads links for all of the books I mentioned in this video listed down below, as well as my TBR game playlist for all the TBR games I've played throughout the year, and information on the Buzzwordathon for 2025. Check it all out. And now that I've gone ahead and I've been adding books to my month's TBR, it's time to read them and start recapping them, so expect me back here for my first official AM reading video of June. Stay tuned for that. I hope all of you who are participating in readathons or TBR games are finding and enjoying your books this summer. And if your TBR games have been, being difficult, hopefully like with mine, finally you got the upper hand. So thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.